Okay, we are now live, and staff, if you'd like to let folks in from the waiting room. And then whenever you're ready, Sarah, Mike will take out the graphics. So whenever you're ready.
Okay, we'll wait till it turns 6:30. Okay, there we go. Are we good? Okay, welcome folks. Thank you for joining us for our last board meeting of the year. So the December regular board meeting. And I have albeit a little long opening remarks because we've had that kind of a year. So bear with me. Are we okay, Sean, for me to continue?
Yes, we're live.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, folks, as another year draws to a close, most of you will be in the midst of preparations for this festive season. This is a very special time of the year as it gives many of us a break from the hustle and bustle of our everyday schedules, provides many of us with some time to enjoy the company of family, friends that is all too often missing the rest of the year. I urge each and every one of you to reflect on these special moments and savor the relationships that we've tried so hard to cultivate over the years. Without a doubt, this has been one of the most exciting years for me, being elected as RA president and balancing my role in life as mother, daughter, wife, small business owner, and recently a grassroots advocate. This has been a crash course in multitasking, and I've learned the most important life skill of all, asking for help, AKA delegating. Erwin, Bob, Larry, Mac, Shalise, and so many others here know what I mean. In keeping with the spirit of this joyous time, it's important to take a few minutes and recall the events of the year, the lessons learned, and the new relationships we have formed. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our RA staff, our interim CEO, our new CEO, our council, our past board liaison, our interim board liaison, our brand new board liaison, the SLT, and so many others for the tremendous effort they put in and day out to make sure that our members and facilities are well cared for. Many of us do not see all the demands placed on our staff, but their work is greatly appreciated. To my fellow board members, I want to thank each and every one of you for your dedication to the success of the organization and the tremendous work you put into proper governance of the organization. I also wish to acknowledge the participation of our volunteer committee members. They commit endless hours of volunteer time to make sure the board is supported through our decision-making. Lastly, to our members, my sincere appreciation for your continued support of the Reston Association and the pride you demonstrate as being members of our one-of-a-kind community. You are the source of our strength, the reason we exist, and the most important piece of the RA family. Happy holidays to you all, and hope to see you in the new year. That said, here's wishing for an efficient and effective last board meeting of the year.
No pressure.
And I just want to take a minute. Mac, did you want to share any comments, or any other directors want to share any? Please feel free.
Well, I will be super brief. I did not prepare written remarks tonight, but I think I just want to mention to the board and any public listening, on behalf of the staff, we really enjoy working here and serving the community. And we are really excited about the difference that we make out there. And the staff are out every day doing great things on your behalf, making change and thinking about the community, and from maintenance to programming to things out on our there's a lot of work that gets done from a lot of really, really good people. So thank you to the board, and thank you, Board President Sarah, for your kind remarks. We all love being here.
Yeah. Any other directors, any comments? If not, we can jump into the agenda. Okay. Need a motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Any
Aye.
comments? Aye. Perfect. I think that was unanimous. Hearing no objection, because Margaret is going to be muted for most of this. So hearing no objection, we will move on. Okay, move to adopt the consent calendar, please. And
So moved.
I have
Bob has some.
three corrections to make to the minutes. As I've mentioned to the new board secretary. On page 9, at the top of page 9, I know at times I speak out of both sides of my mouth, but I was recorded as voting both yay and nay on the 2 motions, and I voted just yay. And the second issue is it was noted towards the bottom of the page that Director Juszczyk left the meeting, but in the paragraph below that she remarked after she left the meeting, and it was discussed with the interim board secretary that this is a result of a divergence in the order in which things were taken. But I just wanted to mention those 3 minor issues before we moved on.
Do you understand what the second piece was? Because we were waiting on the auditors, we didn't go according to the order of the agenda. And we moved some items out of order. So if the board is okay with us just reordering it, so it makes more logical sense. Any thoughts,
Yes.
Erwin? You're as secretary, you're okay?
That, I'm fine with that.
Bob, you're okay with those
Yes,
two?
absolutely.
Okay, so are we approving agenda as amended?
The minutes is amended. Yes, ma'am. That's my motion.
Sorry, minutes is amended. Perfect. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, perfect. That was unanimous. Okay, moving on to member comments. If there are any members here, you get 3 minutes as an individual, 5 for an organization. And please start with your name and address. If you're not comfortable, send your address to Shalice via chat. I see Tammy with her hand up. Shalice and Brittany, do you have anybody else? If not, can you unmute Tammy? Has anyone signed up ahead of time? If not, I think Tammy has her hand up. Okay. Can we unmute Tammy, please? There you go. I think you can speak.
Thank you so much. And I sort of feel like Hitler saying anything negative. I do want to start by saying thank you so much, Tammy Petrain, 2503 Foxcroft Way. I am concerned about the fact that 2 major, or not necessarily major, but issues that you're going to discuss tonight were dropped today in Reston Now or different platforms. And that's not enough time for the public to react. I just, something with the communications timeline has to change, I hope. For example, the New Lake Usage Advisory Group and the renaming of Lake Audubon were the subjects I'm referring to. Both are surely worthy of discussion, but seriously, in December, when we are frantically running around trying to do stuff, what is not being addressed by Reston Association, and please make it a priority as soon as possible, is land use. We have 2 things going on in Reston that are critical to the well-being of not only RA as an organization, but every single RA member. And those are the parking reimagined fiasco that will affect all of the PRC and corridor drastically, but also the parking in your parking requirements for your amenities. So that is something that is very urgent. You'll not have another board meeting before the Board of Supervisors has their hearings, because those are January 5th and 12th. So here we are with a critical issue that has, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong and you have discussed this in the past. The other thing is, what the heck is the other thing? I'm so sorry. Oh, the PAC, the Performing Arts Community. That's less directly affecting, although it is going to affect every RA member's budget, the member families, if it goes through. And I don't know that that's ever even been discussed. So that's a more tangential thing, but it's important. And it may also impact your Parks and Rec, itinerary. So thank you so much to everybody on the board and the staff who work so hard. Love you all and appreciate you. Welcome to the new members, and Mac, we're thrilled you're here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tammy. I think I see Michael with his hand up. Brittany, if you don't have anybody else, I'm assuming Michael's next.
Hi, this is Michael Brandlin. I reside at 11496 Links Drive in Reston, Virginia, 20190. And while I'm a avid user of all things parks and recreation, including running, biking, trails, triathlons, the pools, tennis, I'm here to talk about pickleball tonight. I'm going to keep it to just a few points. I understand that you are now allowing non-Reston members to have a guest pass. I have a few questions regarding that. As an example, if I'm a non-resident, I buy the $319 pass. Does that mean I can buy a guest pass for my spouse or my best friend, whoever, and they could come and play pickleball with me, say 365 days out of the year, as long as that person who paid the $319 is there to accompany them and has that guest pass. Secondly, the points that I have about pickleball are, I understand Autumnwood is going to be resurfaced when the temperature is correct. I would urge you to try to get on the books with the contractor now so there's no delay. We had been told that this was going to happen last year and it never did. Secondly, I understand Barton Hills is still up for discussion about how that is going to be used. Just a quick, I'm on a chat group that has about 90 participants in it now. It's all strictly pickleball, and we've had a discussion since I was at the advisory council meeting via Zoom. And our preference is that those courts either be dedicated pickleball courts with permanent nets in the ground and just pickleball lines, or if it has to be a mixed use, it would just still be all pickleball courts permanently with lines and a tennis court that has no pickleball lines on it. Tennis players hate multi-use lines. Pickleball players hate multi-use lines, and they hate even more temporary nets. It changes the game. The tension and the strength of those nets do not allow you to play the game it's meant to be played. So we prefer that it either be all pickleball or all tennis. Lastly, the pass now for non-residents is considered a court pass, so which means you can play tennis or pickleball. Us pickleball enthusiasts would like to recommend that Lake Newport, which has pickleball lines already there and temporary nets, during open play, not when they're having lessons or having leagues or having tournaments, which I know are all revenue boosters for Reston and don't want to infringe on that. But when there's open play, that there be some of the courts designated as pickleball first courts.
Mr. Brandlin, your 3 minutes are up.
Okay. Thank you.
Michael, is that it?
That's it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any others? Brittany? Shalice? Anyone else with their hands up? Anybody else waiting for us? Okay, if there are no other member comments, we will move into executive session. Can I get a motion to move into executive session, please?
We need.
Oh, we have one member comment. I'm sorry, somebody has their hand up. Brittany, do you see Patty with her hand up?
Yes, hello, I'm Patty Chen. I reside at 2405 Myrtle Lane in Reston, Virginia, 20191. And I want to echo what Mike just said about pickleball. I am also on the 90-person plus chat for pickleball. I'm also an avid tennis player as well. I used to, when there was such a thing, be on the tennis board of the Reston Association. And I want to just reiterate that there's plenty of tennis courts in Reston. And so if there's concern about taking courts away from the tennis players, there are many, many, many unused courts. And there is not enough pickleball courts. So I would really encourage the board to consider, as Mike said, taking the Barton Hill courts and making them just pickleball courts, as well as allowing some of the Lake Newport courts to be used in the manner that he also spoke of. I think, as many of you probably read and know, pickleball is such a growing sport. There's more and more people that show up at the Autumnwood courts every day. Reston Association members as well as some non-members who have paid the fee. And there's just not enough pickleball courts in Reston. And I think for the board to consider adding more would be timely and also much needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patty. I have one question for Michael and Patty. This 90-member group that you've got, if you could share the contact with maybe our staff. Larry, anytime we're looking at decisions and feedback for certain projects, capital improvements, especially to do with pickleball or tennis, that'll be a great focus group for us to reach out. I'm thinking more like prac survey. So if there's a way you guys can connect, that'll be fantastic.
And is that 19 or 90 members?
I think they said 90. I think Michael is on mute. Brittany, can we unmute Michael, please?
Yes,
90.
90. It's a WhatsApp chat group. And if somebody wants to text me, my cell is 703-209-7171. I will send you the invitation link to join the chat group.
I'll be surprised if Rob is not already on it, but Larry, it'd be good for us to maybe get Rob on it. Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you all.
Michael and Patty, thanks for your comments. Jeremy, I think Jeremy has his hands up for member comments. Brittany, can you unmute Jeremy, please? Perfect. There we go. Hi, Jeremy. Nope. You're on mute.
Unmute?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I live at 2005 Halyard Lane. I was referring to discussion item number K, referred to Equity Working Group for Focus or RA Lakes. 4 years ago, I was on the Lake Stock and Boat Working Group, which discussed all of the items that you seem to be wanting to discuss at this lake committee. There were 15 to 18 members on it. It lasted about a year. And it seems that I don't understand why you would want to have another working group when we spent the entire year with all the staff, members from the lake, members from the community, discussing all the same things over again. The worst thing about that meeting is, one, there was about 15, 18 people. Secondly, the rest and staff ended up at the end of the meeting taking over the meeting just for their own purposes. And so I think that, having this working group is just a repeat of what was done for an entire year of Reston staff, Reston people from on the lakes, from off the lakes, Reston staff, guest speakers and other things. So I don't think it's worth having this group unless there are changes to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any other member comments? Okay, hearing none. Brittany, Shalice, do you see any hands up? Okay, can I get a motion to go into? Actually, before we go into executive session, I still need a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Laurie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, motion to move into executive session, please.
I move that we,
Or,
Madam President, I'm sorry, go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead. Go ahead, John.
So Madam President, I move we go into executive session for the purpose of discussing contractual matters in consultation with counsel.
Perfect. There a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mike and Margaret?
Oh,
I'm assuming
sorry.
they're yeses. Okay, thank you. Folks, we'll be right back after executive session. In the meantime, you will see the presentations for our agenda items. L, N, and L, M, and N. Thank you, Brittany. Take us away.
This is the Treasurer's report for the period ending November 30th, 2022. This month's report will be very brief as we approach the holidays and year end. Revenues and expenses, particularly operating revenues, have tracked very closely with the 2022 budget, and the positive variance in operating expenses continue to be driven by lower people costs than those budgeted. On this slide, my remarks will be limited to a comparison on year-to-date numbers for 2022 and 2021. Through November, net revenues were slightly behind 2021, down a total of $27,000 or 0.5%. But net revenues continue to be substantially better than the 2022 budget, up by over $1.5 million or 43.5%. This difference is the result of a positive variance in income and a cumulative negative variance in operating expenses. Revenues are up by over $561,000. This includes an increase of $455,000 in assessments and fees, an increase of $231,000 in recreational services and programs, but these increases were offset by a decline of $124,000 in other revenue. Expenses are higher by $589,000. This negative variance resulted from an increase of $597,000 in utilities and maintenance cost increases, as well as professional services. There was also a $77,000 increase in people cost, but that was offset by an $88,500 decline in administrative expenses. Finally, just a few words on financial stability of the association is reflected in the following performance ratios. The working capital ratio indicates that for every dollar of current debt owed, RA has $11.21 in current assets to cover those debts. The quick ratio indicates that for every dollar of current debt owed, RA has $10.05 in readily convertible assets to cover those debts. And the debt to equity ratio indicates that RA has only 23.3 cents in debts and other obligations for every dollar of equity that it holds. This concludes my report for the month. If you have any questions at all on the financials or budgets, please do not hesitate to contact me at bodpetrine@reston.org, and I will respond to you as quickly as possible. Thank you, and happy holidays to everyone.
Good evening. My name is Chris Shoemaker, Director of Capital Projects. Tonight I'm going to present to you a year-end report on capital work as well as a report on carry-forwards going into 2023. Starting off are some highlights of the department in 2022. In execution, we've completed $3.1 million in work, which approximates 72% of the project listing. Some of these projects included the temporary road pavilion, which had multiple ADA enhancements, and the pool refurbishments at Ridge Heights and Tall Oaks Pool. For contract administration, we executed over 60 contracts, over a dozen DRB applications, and we continue to digitize our project archive files for a future asset management system. In reporting, we updated the 5-year capital improvement plan, refined the 2023 capital budget, and provided quarterly updates to the board of directors. For communications, we continue to engage the Lake Throw community as the project progresses, and we've also completed a total of 6 capital-related YouTube videos. Highlights in the fourth quarter include the Browns Chapel repaving project, where we milled over 37,000 square feet of parking area and then repaved, and replaced 500 feet of pathway. As part of the project, we also conducted several drainage and safety improvements, including new speed humps and permeable paving areas on either side of the main drive aisle. Another project highlight in the fourth quarter were projects at Ridge Heights and North Shore Pool. At Ridge Heights, a large section of the main pool deck was replaced to correct trip hazards and drainage issues. And at North Shore, you can see in the bottom 2 images the replacement of the main pool filtration system with new filters, valves, plumbing, and we also replaced the backwash discharge line that was over 50 years old and had partially collapsed underground. Another project highlight is the footbridge installations, one by Dogwood Elementary and another one at Soapstone Drive. Demolition is currently underway at the Dogwood Elementary location, where crews have mobilized and begun digging out the foundations for the bridge. We are currently awaiting final permit approval on the pier design at Soapstone and hope to have that project underway before the new year. Another project highlight is over at Walnut Branch, where we replaced the pergola and can see in the bottom 3 images the before, during, and after, as well as the recoloring and crack repair of the multi-purpose court. More project highlights are at our Central Services Facility, our main maintenance facility for Reston Association. We replaced 3 of the garage doors that will help improve thermal efficiency inside the work areas. We installed a new energy-efficient air compressor that replaced a 30-year-old unit, and installed a solar reflective thermal foam roof coating to protect the covered storage area. The last update is on the Lake Throw Pool project. We are currently at 25% physical completion, with demolition, regrading, and structural supports of the elevated deck complete. Crews are currently working on fine grading, structural steel, concrete, and plumbing for the main pool basin. After the new year, bathhouse addition work will commence that will house the offices as well as a family restroom. We're currently holding on schedule and anticipate opening sometime during the 2023 swim season. However, weather impacts this winter could affect that schedule. We'll be sure to give an update on timing should we have any further delays. Here's a small sample of the time-lapse video on the project. You can find the entire video on the Lake Throw project page on the RA website. The next several slides will be doing comparisons for this year versus prior. For 2022, of the 69 projects, 50 were completed and 19 are being carried forward. For project execution, $3.1 million will be spent, and another $3.4 million being carried forward into 2023. That carry forward is comprised predominantly of just 4 projects that are highly complex and in some cases anticipated to take more than 1 year. These include the Hunters Woods Ballfield redevelopment, the Shadowwood Pool refurbishment, the Barton Hill Tennis renovation, and the Lake Throw Pool renovation. Here's a more detailed summary on the carry forwards for 2023. As you can see, the vast majority of it comprises of pool buildings and swimming pools, which is the Lake Throw Pool project and the refurbishment of Shadowwood Pool. A 14% segment is related to the Barton Hill Tennis renovation, and 8% are the Hunters Woods Ballfield redevelopment. Here's a snapshot report in the fourth quarter. Of the $6.4 million total budget, just over $2.1 million has been spent. We anticipate by the end of the year another $1 million being executed, as Lake Throw and several other large projects are almost underway or have not invoiced out for their final completion. Carrying forward into 2023 will be $3.4 million, and 90% of that is comprised of just 4 projects as mentioned before. Ahead for the department in 2023, include the new Capital webpage as part of the new website, and data collection and scanning for a future asset management system. We'll also be preparing for the 2024 reserve study, and we'll have several major projects, including the Barton Hill Tennis renovation, completion of the Lake Throw Pool project, the renovation of Glade Tennis, the redevelopment of Hunters Woods Ball Field, and the refurbishment of Shadowwood Pool. We'll also be continuing to coordinate with Fiscal Committee on capital planning and forecasting into the coming years. If you have any questions, comments, or need more info on any capital projects, please contact us at capitalprojects@reston.org, leave us a message at 703-435-6556, or visit the Capital webpage at www.reston.org/capital project overview. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight I want to give a brief update on some land use issues affecting the great community of Reston. First, let me talk briefly about the Reston Comprehensive Plan update. A little update on the timeline here. The county staff report is due in early 2023. Committees of the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors will be setting up meetings thereafter to review the new text and comments from county staff. Right now, the Planning Commission public hearing is tentatively scheduled for the spring, and then later spring, the Board of Supervisors public hearing and hopeful adoption of the new comprehensive plan for Reston. This is a process that has been going on for well over 2 years, and I think the community is hopeful to kind of land this plane in the spring. The site-specific plan amendment process is underway, and as I had reported earlier, there were 75 nominations countywide, 15 in the Hunter Mill District, and 13 were in or immediately adjacent to Reston, or very close to Reston. At the Board of Supervisors meeting on December 6th, those applications that will move forward in the process were approved. It's important to note that Reston National Golf Course and Hidden Creek Country Club were not approved to move forward. Supervisor Alcorn has made it clear for some time and reiterated this week, or last week, excuse me, that the golf courses will not move forward as there is not enough citizen support to change the comprehensive plan designation of those 2 golf courses. In addition, those applications that were selected to move forward that are within Reston will not have review or analysis commenced until the updated comprehensive plan is adopted next year. The link below takes you to the site-specific plan amendment process. Here's a map showing the location of the SSPA nominated properties in or adjacent and near Reston, with, of course, the 2 golf courses X'd out on this particular graphic. Another recent land use matter here in Reston is the Vantage Hill pool site redevelopment. This is up in the Lake Ann District. This was a pool that was owned by the Vantage Hill Condominium Association, hasn't been run for many years, and they have worked with Craftmark Homes to develop 28 townhomes on this property, and it will be set up as a condominium association. The Reston Association Design Review Board has approved this, and on December 6th, the Board of Supervisors approved this application. I do not know the time frame for when this will actually go forward into the development process, but the approvals are now in place for that to happen. If you have any questions about this or other land use matters in Reston, please feel free to email landuse@reston.org, and we will try to get back with you as soon as possible. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Matt Cummins, RA's new CEO, and I'm here today to encourage you, whether you're a renter or a property owner, to get involved in the key decisions facing Reston in the future. The Reston Association Board of Directors will have 5 open seats in 2023. We hope you consider being a candidate in one of these elections. 1 is for the Hunters Woods Dogwood District, 3 at-large seats, and 1 apartment owner's representative. To qualify, you must be a member of the Reston Association and complete a candidate statement and petition. To learn more about the election process, please join us at the election information session on January 17th at 6 p.m. Candidate application materials must be filed by 5 p.m. on January 27th and can be found online at reston.org. Should you have any questions, please email electionscommittee@reston.org. More than 50 years ago, Robert Simon Jr. planned this diverse, welcoming community regardless of race, ethnicity, or income. Today, with your leadership, we can help continue his vision and make sure this wonderful community remains the best place to live, work, play. Please get involved.
Guess what? It's another beautiful day in Reston. Hello, I'm Samara Kendrick, and I've recently joined Reston Association as the new Director of Human Resources and Administrative Services. Since joining the RA team in July, I can certainly confirm that Reston is the model community where all can live, work, play, and get involved. That's why I'm here today. There are many great opportunities to become a part of the RA team. We have positions available throughout the year, and perhaps you're a high school student or a college student looking for a part-time position. Or maybe you're a stay-at-home parent or even a veteran or a retiree that's looking for a new place to spend your time and make a difference in the community. We currently have an open position for an arborist. So I've asked Brian Cahart from our CSF team to give us an idea of the responsibilities involved with this position.
Hi, welcome to the CSF. Here we manage everything related to the 1,300 acres of open space, lakes, watersheds, and 55 miles of our pathways. Currently, we have 2 full-time arborists on staff, and we're looking to hire a 3rd. As part of our arborist team, your responsibility will be to maintain our open space, which includes removing dead, dying trees, pruning trees that pose a threat to the public. To qualify for this position, we prefer candidates that are ISA certified arborists or certified tree workers. Your work week will include 4 10-hour workdays. This position includes full-time benefits, on-the-job training, and we do ask that you have 2 to 4 years of tree climbing experience. I hope you consider joining our team, and I look forward to meeting you.
So, if you or perhaps someone you know might be interested in this position or joining our team in one of our other positions, please contact Reston Association and connect with our Human Resources team by calling 703-435-6530 or visit our careers page at careers.reston.org.
Hi, I'm Ha Brock, the Volunteer Reston Manager. As we wrap up the year, we would like to thank all our volunteers that assisted with our natural area enhancement projects, nature center programs, community events, and much more. This year marked another exceptional year of volunteerism. Volunteer Reston saw growth from community citizens donating their time, talents, and resources to enhance our programs, services, and natural areas. Our volunteers get up early or last to leave and give their time on weeknights and weekends. We value our volunteers and consider ourselves fortunate to work with such a dedicated group of community citizens of all ages. Over 1,000 volunteers participated in 80 opportunities in Reston this year. Volunteer Reston hosted 9 corporate day of service projects and continue to support Reston Community Organization with their volunteer needs as well. Without our volunteers, we would not be able to provide the quality service and programs we currently provide to our members in Reston. If you are interested in volunteering in Reston, please reach out to me at ha@reston.org or call 703-435-7986. Happy holidays, and we hope to see you next year.
Hi, folks. We're back. Sorry, it took us a little longer than expected. Thank you for bearing with us. Bob, I think you have the cleansing motion. You're on mute, Bob.
The Board of Directors certifies to the best of each present member's knowledge that only those matters appropriate for executive session of a personnel, contractual, or legal nature were heard, discussed, or considered by the Board of Directors during the executive session.
Madam Chairman, can I ask Mr. Petrine to modify his motion and take out the reference to personnel matters, since it was consultation with counsel and contractual matters was the motion that we made to go into executive session?
You okay with the
Very good.
modification, Bob?
So amended.
Yeah. Okay.
With
So is that
I'll
a second, John?
I'll second with that.
Perfect. Any objections? Everyone voting aye?
Yes.
I'm a nay. I'm a nay on that.
You're a nay?
Yep.
Okay. Margaret, do we have Margaret here? Tony, can we say Margaret is an abstention since I don't see her on my screen?
She may not be present if that's the
Oh,
case.
she's not present, so she can't vote.
She's not present at all. Okay.
Oh,
Here she is.
Yeah, I think she was in the breakout room. Margaret, can you hear us?
She might be muted.
She's still connecting to audio. Margaret, can you hear us?
Okay, we'll move on to the next motion. Have it as Margaret was not present for that one. Okay, move to
No,
ratify.
she just unmuted herself?
I did.
Margaret, we voted on the cleansing motion, so you've heard it before. Yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay, move to ratify and approve the decision reached in executive session to appoint Forvis as the association's auditor, subject to a mutually agreed upon written contract, which shall be presented to the board in Jan 2023. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bob. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Fantastic. I think that's unanimous. Perfect. Next motion is moved that in accordance with the association's policies on purchasing and procurement, to approve the change order with Cooley LLP, raising the not to exceed amount of $39,967.50 for legal services related to Barton Hill project. Is there a second? Okay, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Margaret, are you,
Aye.
She says she's raised her hand.
yes, Margaret, go ahead.
No,
That's an aye vote, is it?
thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, that was unanimous as well. Okay, the next item that I have is to appoint our assistant secretary. And I think everyone has met Brittany. Brittany Copeland is here with us. If you want to say a quick hi, Brittany, you want to introduce yourself to the board and our members? Go for it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany Copeland, and I am your new board, committee, and legal liaison, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much.
Thank
So
you.
I need a motion to appoint Brittany as Assistant Secretary of RA. Erwin, do you want to do the honors?
Yes, I am pleased to so move.
Perfect. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 Director Collins? Okay, thank you. Perfect. That was unanimous as well. Perfect. We're a little late. We're a little behind on schedule, but moving on to item G, we have Leslie Pine with us, I think, and Ashley. So
Yes.
whoever is presenting, go for it. This is your show. Is someone helping you with slides for this presentation?
I think Ashley was going to share her screen. Do you have permission, Ashley, to do that?
I do not.
We do have slides if you all can. Tom has a copy of the
there we go.
slide.
You got it now.
Ashley, you do have permission to share your screen.
Thank you.
You have access.
Perfect. And to the directors, I know we did not see this in our board packet on Friday, but we've seen the audit. And I think this is just their easy to understand brief version for us with slides. So you will be looking at something that's not in your board packet.
Yes, so we'll walk through this. This document contains the required communications that we as auditors make to those charged with governance, the board of Reston Association. Ashley, if you scroll down to our audit objective, our objective is to obtain reasonable but not absolute assurance that the statements are free of material misstatements. We did conduct our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. All records and information that we requested throughout the process were available for our inspection. Management's cooperation was excellent. We did receive full access to all information that we requested during the course of the audit. That last sentence there is management and the board are still responsible for the governance of the organization. Our audit does not relieve management of and the board of their responsibility. The next slide, audit summary results of the audit. I will turn it over to Ashley Reynolds to walk through the summary results.
Thanks, Leslie. Thank you, everyone. So the first section notes our audit opinion. We did issue an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion in accounting speak, on the consolidated financial statements on November 30th, 2022. As Leslie noted, management's cooperation was excellent. We did receive access to everything that we needed to look at to complete our audit documentation and issue in a report on the audited financial statements. As a result of our procedures, we do start with the association's trial balance, and any adjustments that come up as a result of our auditing procedures would be presented in this section of corrected and uncorrected misstatements. There were no corrected misstatements. So in general terms, that means that from the time that we got the numbers from Tom and his team, we did not need to adjust those numbers for being materially misstated. We did have 2 adjustments that we proposed, but management, which they have the option to do so, declined to post due to their immaterial nature to the financial statements. So these would be adjustments that we brought to management, but were not reflective in the final financial statements issued in November. Any questions on this page?
Nope, I think we're good. Directors, any questions?
None.
No.
All right. In performing our auditing procedures, we do look at the qualitative aspects of significant accounting policies and practices, especially management estimates, as those are susceptible to management override and potential fraud risks, which is something that we consider for all of our audit clients. We look at significant and unusual transactions during the year. For 2021, there were none that we noted in terms of amounts reported in the financial statements. We do look at the presentation, ensuring that Friends of Reston as well as Reston Association are properly consolidated and all the required disclosures are presented. And there were no alternative accounting treatments that were discussed during 2021. So all of the accounting is under US GAAP as well as the disclosures. On this page, we go over our results of our audit procedures from a control perspective. We do not issue an opinion on internal controls. However, internal controls are a critical aspect for all of our nonprofit organizations that we serve to ensure that the assets of the organization are properly maintained. As a result of our procedures, we did note 2 different control deficiencies, which we designated as material weaknesses, meaning that while they did not amount to a material misstatement or error in the financial reporting, they had the potential to. So both are related to the cyber event that occurred back in late 2020. And focus around the password controls and cybersecurity controls in place at the association at the time of the breach, as well as the vendor change process for changing vendor payment instructions, wire account, bank accounts, things like that at the time of the breach. Of course, those two items have been remediated by management as soon as they were made aware of the breach and did all the appropriate actions as a association to address that breach. But we do have to note that that was a control deficiency that had occurred. The other two items noted are significant deficiencies. So while those are something that we deem to be significant enough to be brought to the attention of those charged with governance, they are not considered material weaknesses. They just are what we deem to be significant enough for you all to see in writing and take note of. The first is outsourced IT function, ensuring that the contract and scope of work with Red River is appropriate for the organization size. Apologize for my dogs. You can hear them barking. And then the second is just a tightening up of the monthly reconciliation process and ensuring that all of the reconciliations are performed, as well as properly reviewed and approved, and that documentation is taking place so that there is audit. All right, and then this last page, I won't go over in detail. I know you guys are very short on time, but this is a summary of the financial results for 2021 compared to 2020, and increases or decreases, which I'm sure you all are very well aware of from your previous meetings. So won't go into detail, but happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I just want to say it's been great serving the association as auditors the last few years.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Any questions? Bob, as treasurer, do you have any questions?
No.
I know you met.
No, we've talked through all these issues previously.
Perfect.
Do
Director,
any of the other board meeting members have any questions?
any other directors, any questions on this? Again, we've seen the audit. We're aware of the cyber incident. A lot of steps have been taken since to ensure that doesn't happen again. No other questions. Thank you so much, Leslie and Ashley, especially for coming back. I know we tried to make this work in November. Thank you for coming back. Happy holidays. And we will move on to Mark. Thanks. Hi, I see Mark. Can someone unmute him, please? Brittany, do you see Mark Berger?
I do not see him on.
Thank you. Oh, before we do that, sorry, Mark, to interrupt you. I think we need a motion to approve the audit.
So
Yes,
moved.
Bob? Perfect. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Margaret, was that an aye?
Yeah.
Perfect. Unanimous. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Mark. Your show.
Good evening.
Thank you.
I'm Mark Berger, and I'm here to go over the Form 990 that the association filed for its 2021 year. And if I could get screen sharing ability, I think that would be the most efficient way to do this.
Brittany, I'm assuming you're helping him with that.
I believe I've got it.
There you go. Yes, you do. And folks, again,
Okay.
we've seen this in
So-
our board packet. So,
Right. So this will be a very brief overview. As you know, the association's 990 is open to public disclosure. Anybody that wants to get a copy of the return can generally get it. The first page provides just a snapshot of the organization and provides some comparative financial data. An important section of the of the form is part 6 for this group, which has the questions relating to governance and management of the organization. Section A asks a bunch of questions regarding makeup of the board and powers of the board. And Section B asks questions regarding the existence of certain policies, conflict of interest policy, whistleblower policy, document retention policy. These are policies that are not required by law, but the IRS views the existence of them as evidence of a well-managed organization. Parts 8 through 11 have the financial information of the organization. Part 8 is the revenue. Part 9 is expenses. Part 10 is the balance sheet. And Part 11 is the net assets reconciliation. As Sarah mentioned, this group has seen these numbers. They're not a lot changed year over year. But this is the area of the return where you can find that information. And it's also worth pointing out that any place in the return in those first 12 parts that has see attached schedule or provide a narrative description, you're going to find that in Schedule O to the return. And each narrative response here is tied to the particular question in the first 12 parts. So you can find those narrative disclosures back there in Schedule O. And lastly, we attach Schedule R to report related organizations. So we report the Friends of Reston as a related organization to the association. That's the 990 in a very quick nutshell. The association also files a Form 990T that reports the organization's unrelated business income. It has 2 sources of unrelated business income, one from private tennis lessons, the other from advertising. The organization has a net operating loss carry forward that it can utilize to offset any current income being reported. The organization has about $1 million net operating loss carry forward, which this return, has a detailed schedule on. And if it continues its activities in the level that it has been over the years, that net operating loss carry forward should shelter any unrelated business income and therefore unrelated business income tax, at least through the year 2030. Those are the returns in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any question regarding them from any of the board members or other people.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. Directors, any questions? Bob, again, I think you've talked to Mark before, so no questions. Okay. Thank you so much.
Also, I would like to say thanks for, it's been a pleasure serving the association. I've been on the engagement for the better part of the last 6 years. So again, wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you so much,
certainly,
Mark.
And everybody have a happy holiday season.
To you too. Thank you. And thank you so much for coming out in December for us.
Sure.
Okay,
problem.
again, I need a motion to approve the tax return. 2021 tax return is presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Bob. Is there a second? I'll second. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Perfect. Unanimous. Awesome. Now we get to the little fun stuff that we have, and I think we might have Cam, do you see our guests available to talk about agenda item I, which is the free little libraries?
I do not.
Okay, why don't we start off with Cam? Do you want to give us a little bit of the background on where this request originated and how we got here?
So I believe the homeowner who's a single family detached homeowner.
I do
has-
see, excuse me, Molly and Greg are here. Greg Lynch. Didn't mean to
There is
interrupt. but-
Greg Lynch. Yes. There we go.
Sorry, I
Okay,
was
go-
looking for Molly.
Molly. I know we were looking for Molly, but
Hello,
Well,
we're here. We weren't able to unmute before.
no worries, Greg. How dare you use your name and not your wife's? No, we're glad you're here.
Logged
let
into my
Cam-
Zoom account. Sorry. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
We'll let Cam give us the intro, and then I'll let you make your member comments for a few
Great.
minutes.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. Greg. Go ahead.
So as you are all familiar with Little Free Libraries, it's kind of a grassroots initiative through which neighbors and passerbys can take and leave books as a part of a communal collection. And over the years, we've had several installed within cluster association neighborhoods. And we recently received a request from an RA member who's a non-cluster property owner, so she's in a single family home detached community neighborhood. And she is requesting to install a Little Free Library on an RA common area along a path near her home. And I can say for certain in reviewing the application does seem complete. It's included in the package for this evening. It does seem like there is quite a bit of support for this type of request. And I do believe that some past requests have been reviewed by the Board Operations Committee and the board before. Those requests have been denied for various reasons. Unfortunately, I wasn't here to kind of give you the facts on those, but it does appear that the homeowner has agreed to pay for the materials in the installation. And the RA covenant requires the board to approve any installations that would be on RA common area.
Thank you, Cam. And I don't know if Larry can share a little bit about, we have had in the past other, maybe not a free little library, but I know we definitely approved the beekeepers on our RA property. So there is some precedent too.
Correct. Yeah. When this came up, it was actually a few years ago. I think it might have been before our current general counsel's time, actually. But I think it has come up since then. And so perhaps our general counsel may want to weigh in. Where it came down before was really the control of the content in the library. There was concern that something on our property, if it wasn't monitored actively and the content of what is in that library not monitored, that something offensive could be put in there. And as the property on which it sits, we would be taken to task for that. I think in the current proposal, we would require a maintenance covenant agreement, which is what we use for the beekeepers and other situations where there might be something, there are very few of them on our property. And so that's kind of the short history of that. And I guess I would ask our general counsel if he would like to make a comment with respect to that.
Generally speaking, Larry summed it up pretty well. It creates once you open the floodgates to this, you create a precedent. And so while I'm sure that this applicant would take excellent care and monitor it daily, twice a day, there is the potential with these that literature that's not appropriate could end up in these libraries. And thus, I was one of the attorneys that previously recommended against a free little library because of the potential liability associated with it. And even if it's not strictly legal liability, you can only imagine how this community would come out if something inappropriate ended up in one of those.
And I have a question for you, Tony. In the issuance of a maintenance covenant agreement, can you put in such clauses requiring the content to be monitored as well?
Generally speaking, the maintenance covenant agreement is really for repair and upkeep. I have not drafted one previously that required any sort of action. It's generally, with our docks, for instance, that are our property, it's insure it, indemnify us, and upkeep. So I suppose we could put it in there. I don't know how enforceable it would be. How would you even track that? You know, an individual, you know, we put in there, hey, you're gonna check it no less than 3 times a week. Who's keeping track of that?
Thank you. I see Margaret has her hand up. Go ahead, Margaret.
Well, I also want to be very careful in determining who decides what is appropriate versus inappropriate. For example, I think we all, I hope, would agree that hate speech is completely inappropriate at all times. However, I don't agree that Lord of the Flies is inappropriate. So I think we also need to look at that piece of the puzzle.
Thank you, Margaret. Any other comments from board members? If not, yes, Bob, go ahead.
I have a practical question. Even though it may be RA property, have we spoken with VDOT to make sure it's not in their road easement?
Cam, do you want to address that? I think you have the map where it's very clear.
That would be a part of the DRB process.
Okay.
And Greg, do you want to take this time to give us your 3-minute spiel? Can we unmute Greg, please? Molly and Greg.
Thank you. Yep. So yeah, this was a 10th year anniversary present from Molly. She commissioned it and had it made. So it's just sitting here waiting for books. We were hoping, to share our love of reading with the community. We've lived here now for a little over 2 years in Reston, and I've been in Northern Virginia for more than a decade now. So yeah, just wanted to give back to the community, provide a shared space to bring people together, and hopefully put good things into the world. So.
And Greg and Molly, do you want to touch in on how close this is to your actual house? Because you had mentioned you walk past it a couple of times a day. If you want to address that. Yes, they're muted again. Okay. There we go.
Yeah, so this is probably about 2-3 blocks away. It's one of the reasons that we propose this versus putting it in front of our house is that we're kind of like
on a cul-de-sac.
Yeah, we're on a
out of
cul-de-sac,
cul-de-sac.
like three roads off the main road in our Polo Fields community. So we wanted to put it somewhere more visible. People could use it. So yeah, we have a dog. We generally go on walks when it's not weather like today. And so yeah, we would be passing by this regularly on walks, driving by, things like that. So
Perfect. Thank you, Greg. Any questions for Greg or Molly, directors?
Yeah.
Yes, Lori, go ahead.
You have heard some concerns expressed about whether or not hate speech or other inappropriate content would be present in the boxes. I guess I'd like to hear your comments in response to that.
yeah, I think we would apply what we would think is a reasonable standard. There are some people who think that books that we read when we were in school are inappropriate for children to read because they deal with issues related to the Holocaust or race. So we're, again, I think we take a fairly reasonable standard for, we would not want hate speech in there. If somebody put in Mein Kampf, that would certainly be something we would remove immediately.
But there is such an opportunity to help. There's lots of studies that show that little kids who can take home books are more likely to read and be literate and be up to grade level reading. So just because we have a few daycares in the center, it'd be really great to fill it full of kids' books, and that way they could take home the books and it could really help them.
Does that answer your question, Lori?
Well, partly, I know that people have objected to Huck Finn because of use of a negative term. And so I don't know what your response would be, Greg and Molly, if that book showed up in your box. And I don't know what I'm not suggesting that there's a right and a wrong answer.
Well, one of the really great things about this community is, the parents. And so
Yes.
I think that parents are going to be with any minor. I don't see kids just running around unaccompanied these days. So I think that the parents are going to be the gatekeepers in that case. And we can obviously make the very obvious choices of what to keep from the library. But, when it comes down to it, it'll be the parents.
Go ahead, Erwin.
Is the content intended to be directed towards children and up through what age, or is it open for adult material as well?
I would just say kids, just because we have so many kids in the neighborhood, it'd be really great to, help them out. And I see them, when we go to Lake Anne on the farmer's market, they have a free little library, and I see the little kids taking out books, putting things back in. So that would be what I would fill it full of. Yeah.
Would you label it as such?
We could. Yeah.
But traditionally, the free little library is open to everyone. Yes, it's used more by kids, but Erwin, if I want to take a book, you can't stop me. So.
Well, obviously. But,
Yes.
Hey guys, just one more question. This is for Larry, Mac, and or Tim.
Go ahead, Margaret.
Currently monitors the Little Free Library at Washington Easter Center.
We have on-site staff there.
I'm sorry, which location?
Nature Center.
That's monitoring it.
Right, because we have full-time staff that are on site all the time.
Okay, that answers the question. Staff, that's the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Okay, if we have no more questions, I have a proposed motion I can make, and then we can see how the chips fall. Are you okay with that? Any other discussion? Or are you okay with me going ahead with the motion? Okay, approve the issuance of a maintenance covenant agreement executed by the CEO and signed by the designated owner and recorded with their property related to the installation of the Free Little Library on RA common area, and move the design review application forward for DRB consideration. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Yes, Erwin?
is it Free Little Library or Little Free Library?
Little Free Library.
I understood it's the latter.
Little Free Library, sorry.
Yes. You might want to correct the motion to that effect.
Okay, as amended. If Bob, I'm hoping you're okay with the amendment.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. And no other discussion? Can we call the vote? All in favor? Perfect. That was unanimous. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Molly and Greg. That doesn't mean you're through. You still have to go through DRB. So wish you the best of luck with that process.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome. Bye. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item. Director Farrell, I think this is your show.
Thank you, Madam President. As many of you know, I'm a bird watcher. And over the course of the last several months, I became aware of something of a controversy within the birdwatching community relative to the use of the name Audubon. In fact, within the last, I think, year or so, the Maryland chapter of the Audubon Society have changed the name of their facilities to Nature Forward because of the unattractive associations of John James Audubon. You all have hopefully read the two articles that I forwarded to everybody. And one of the things to point out is those two articles came out of the National Audubon magazine. And some of the things they pointed out was that Mr. Audubon owned and sold slaves. He opposed British abolition. He bragged about encountering a runaway enslaved family and returning them to bondage. In addition to that, he was a plagiarist, took credit for work that wasn't his own, and also passed off work, pictures of birds that didn't even exist. I asked Chuck Veach, who some of you may know was employed by Rest and Land back at the very beginning, and he told me some of the stories about how our various features got named. Some of you may know that Lake Audubon and Lake Thoreau were once one big lake named Lake Ilsa, and that at one point, the lake that's now called Thoreau was Lake Wyeth. after the Wyeth family. Jamie Wyeth and Andrew Wyeth, N.C. Wyeth, and their sister were artists, relatively famous artists. And when one of Chuck's colleagues called up the Wyeth family and said, "Hey, are you okay with this?" The Wyeth family said, "Hell no."
No.
But that's why there's actually a community cluster on Ridge Heights Road called Chatsworth, because that's where the Wyeth family lived. And so after the Wyeth family said no, they changed the name to Lake Thoreau, and we subsequently had a cluster named Walden. Given all of that, and given Reston's founding principles of being an open community, open to all of us, and founding during the Great Society, and a founding that was about inclusion, it seems to me that there needs to be a reconciliation of our fundamental founding principles of inclusion with this guy's history. Now, I'm not here tonight to propose any change to the name. That's not what I'm about, because I think there needs to be a dialogue. I think when I asked Chuck, I said, "So how did you come up with that name? Why did you pick that one?" And he said, "We're just marketing." And it sounded like a nice idea at the time. There wasn't anything special about it. And as I said, they had the other lake was going to be named Lake Wyeth. I think that when I asked Chuck, I said, "Do you know about this guy's history? And if you had it to do over again, would you pick that name?" And he said, "Absolutely not." And I happened to be in a meeting last night where we brought up the issue with Supervisor Alcorn, and who then regaled us with everything the county had gone through with renaming multiple schools and highways and the like, in an attempt to achieve a more open and inclusive community, pursuing the one Reston, the one Fairfax policies. So what I'm proposing tonight is, I know that there are proposals, or the idea is that we're going to have some open meetings or some listening sessions over the next couple of months. And what I'd ask is that we include this topic, this issue, in those sessions, and take the temperature of the community. And does the community feel like this is a name that we want to perpetuate? This is a man who we want to continue to honor and venerate by naming our largest lake and our swimming pool after this man who has a questionable history. Some people have asked me about what the money would be involved to change the name, and it turns out not a whole lot. The board has this under exclusive control, and we would not have to go to the county to get this approved. If the board ultimately were to choose to go to a different name, the only thing we'd do is send a letter to the U.S. Geological Survey and advise them that the name had been changed. There are two facilities, obviously the lake and the adjacent pool. There are couple of there's a cluster that's Lake Audubon Terrace, and changing their name is up to them. Another cluster, their private street is named Lake Audubon Court, and changing that name is up to that cluster in both cases. It's not something we could control. There are lots of other names that we could go with. We could go with naming the lake after Mary Cassatt or Jacob Lawrence. There are the two women who founded the Audubon Society. Two women founded the Audubon Society, Harriet Hemingway and Minnie Hall. There are women who were part of what's known as the Hudson River School of Artists, and their motivation was to demonstrate the harmony between humankind and nature. And their names were Susie Bartow and Julie Bears and Harriet Peel. And again, I'm not promoting any of those names. I'm just saying the opportunity here to pick a name that reflects the values and the founding principles of Reston are enormous. And I think we don't want to ignore the facts of John James Audubon's life in going forward. Back to money. As far as I can tell, you're talking about the cost of changing the sign in front of the pool. And that's about it. You're not talking about a huge number, but if the board wants to ask the staff to look into the cost of changing that name, that's fine. My point, and the only thing I'm asking for the board to do tonight, is to go ahead and include that in the listening sessions for that we're coming up on that in each of the 4 districts, and ask people for their thoughts and their input on whether or not this is a guy we ought to continue to honor by naming our largest lake and one of our pools after him. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, John. Other directors, any questions for Director Farrell? Yes, Laurie, go ahead.
I hope you would also be open, to having community input into what the next name would be.
Well,
I don't know
absolutely.
whether it makes more sense to bifurcate the process to start with, are we going to change the name and then put discussion of substitute names up for a separate discussion? But I certainly would be eager to get community input as to who we should honor by naming our lake after them, or whether it should be more of a local reference or some other way of naming it.
I'm open to all of that. All I want to try and do tonight is to start the educational process and to include it in. And if you need a motion, Madam President, I am happy to make a motion to direct you to include this as a topic in the listening sessions that we have. But I hope a motion wouldn't be needed, but whatever the chair's preference.
Directors, any other directors, any other comments, and how would you go ahead, Erwin?
I don't have any knowledge about any other names of places in Reston that might be similarly objectionable. But I would think that that should also be examined and looked at by staff. And since this is about a lake, you're going to have something about access and equality and inclusion with it on lakes, and perhaps that can be included in that activity as well, to give a broader and more detailed look at what's going on with that.
Yeah, I don't see this as being part of that effort. That effort's about access to the lakes and uses of the lakes. This is about who we are.
I think the study on the lakes and looking at that is precisely about that.
Does that answer your question, Erwin? Is there any other questions?
Yes.
Okay. John, is there a particular reason you're asking for inclusion in the listening session versus maybe in a PrAC survey or any other format?
Well, the PrAC survey is really about services. And I've been working on the PrAC survey with Jane Baum. I think it's more about dialogue, and that's why I had this item being dialogue, to have a conversation back and forth rather than check a box, yay or nay.
Okay.
I think Mac has a comment.
Mac has his hand up.
Yeah. The one comment I just want to make about the listening session, Mac, I'll let you go for it, is we're still thinking about topics and how we actually navigate that. So that's the only piece that concerns me with this. Will it just be at the at-large listening session, or are we thinking we'll have it at the South Lakes listening session? And we're still formatting that. So if we don't limit it to the listening sessions, I think that'll be better. At least for me and Mac, we're having this conversation about listening sessions. But Mac, go ahead. I'll let you comment on.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I think I have a comment, but it may be more in the form of a question, which is, I took a look at the highest priority work items that you all identified for this year's budget process. And there was, you may recall, a secondary tier of ideas at that time, one of which was to evaluate naming conventions within Reston. This idea would seem to be a subset of that. From my rudimentary knowledge, I was not here when you had that discussion, so I'm not sure the scope or breadth of what that would look like. So I guess my question is this getting out ahead of that other effort that you as a board that said you wanted to be going into? Would this be in lieu of that? There are somewhat limited staff resources, that we heard some comments earlier about land use. And I know a number of you have talked about things going into 23. So there is a number of competing priorities for overall staff effort. And again, not knowing exactly what this would look like, because tonight so far just talking about getting this going. So I've heard you all talk individually and collectively about wanting to move forward and look at naming and change names where appropriate. I'll offer that as a comment, it can become a very large effort. Not to say it's not a very good effort, but it will also compete with other things you've all said you want.
Thank you, Matt. Can I make a suggestion, John, if you're open to it?
Sure.
Can we host a first community meeting? And this is, Mac, the only staff expectation here is for you to help set up a Zoom or an in-person meeting with the communities surrounding Lake Audubon. And I'm happy to host it with you. I'd love for you to lead that community meeting. And let's start with that group and maybe open the conversation there and see what response we get. Is that something you'll be?
I'm happy to be anywhere to talk about this, because I think it goes to the heart of who we are and what is the nature of our community. And I don't see this as demanding a lot of staff time other than copying the 2 articles from the Audubon magazine to give people some background. So I'm happy to get it started any way you think works.
And Larry, can you remind me, we have an email list for those who live around the lakes, right? If not, we can ask Mary and Dave Prochnow to share on theirs, that we're having a specific community meeting on this, just for
Right.
Lake Audubon.
Yeah, the Prochnows are on Lake Throw.
Oh,
But we do have, we can get to the clusters, through Cam and his staff. And I know that Ben's got a pretty good list of, the boat owners. And so we have we can get the word out. And I think the word will, once we get it out to, those main contacts, I think it will get out quickly beyond that.
There was an article in Reston Now or Patch today. So I think the word's getting out, as Mrs. Petrine made clear this evening.
And Mac, are you okay with us starting with just that one effort, one meeting, and then let's see what kind of response we get there and then strategize for next steps? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we get into this, just from an expectation setting standpoint, it's been my experience, communities, when they come out and want to talk about these things, they're somewhat sensitive to. So I'm just being really sensitive to the timing it takes to move through that well. So yes, absolutely.
And should we set a timeline of maybe early March, or what are we thinking? You want sooner? I'm okay. It's just Jan, Feb, cold. Where do you, however we feel?
March is the end of my term. So I may not be here to follow up. So, if we could start it, February, that would be lovely. But, I don't want to burden the staff or anybody else with which is fundamentally a really serious conversation.
Are we comfortable with Feb, folks? Mac and Larry, you're the ones who are going to have to help us with inviting these people and then setting up a meeting. And
yeah, if you want it in February, I think we can certainly make that happen.
Lori, go ahead, Lori.
I just wanted to add, as Ms. Petrine has pointed out in her comments on the chat, this is a discussion that affects all of Reston, not just those on Lake Audubon. And so I do think that we need to make sure that everyone is invited to whatever public meeting. I think going in February makes sense. Yes.
But I would say let's start with the first one being just those who are immediately around, and then open it up depending on what we hear. And we can absolutely, depending on what response we get, go on to a bigger community meeting. Is that okay with everyone? How do you feel about that, John? This is your baby.
I would not want this board to act on a name change until we had a broad scale conversation.
Correct.
And so you and I are in agreement on this. And I think starting with the immediate neighbors is a good place to start. But I also think it needs, once we have that feedback, I think it does need to go on to a broader group, whether it's an at-large meeting or however it gets done. This is work that needs to be done.
Okay.
Agreed.
We all okay with that? Okay. I'm assuming you don't need a motion, staff. You're okay with what we've discussed, Mac? So sometime in Feb.
Yep, we will work on a schedule and get back to everybody about all the logistics.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, John. And Mac, you were right. We don't want to lose sight of the secondary item we have in our budget agenda priorities, that we want to look at signage across Reston, not just Lake Audubon. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item. The next one is mine. Again, you've seen the proposal. I've given my reasons before. I'm happy to repeat them. Any questions? Happy to take questions from directors.
Can you say aloud what the matter is? I know we've got the agenda, but for those who are watching the video.
Sure. We have a proposal for an equity-focused working group. Equity working group with a focus on RA Lakes. And in our board packet, we have the description of what we're looking at. The things we want to mainly cover is improved access for all and a focus on equity. And hopefully by having a diverse group, have the conversation about how do we achieve that. In layman's terms, to give you an example, if you ask anyone, public access to our lakes is limited to some spots, meaning Lake Ann is very accessible. It's open. You have a commercial parking lot, you have a plaza, you can go into the lake. It feels very welcoming. We've now lately, with the new upgrades at South Lakes Shopping Center, we have another area where it feels like it's open. I see high school kids hanging out there all the time. We don't have the same kind of paddleboard or approach to actually access the lakes. I know, Larry, we've talked about that before, about maybe doing a pop-up, but this is more to look at all of our lakes from that equity standpoint about access. Because a lot of our approaches or entrances to the lakes are usually in clusters or in neighborhoods that are residential with no clear signage welcoming all RA members to the lakes, or even directing them to, hey, you can park here to go to the lake, because you always feel like you're parking on somebody's private street. And that said, there's also the conversation about how do people access the lakes. I want to bring your attention to Lori Zell's comments that we got in our October board meeting, where she said, I enjoy seeing all people using the lakes, the kids and, you know, all of their friends jumping off on their paddle boards and enjoying the lakes with their kayaks. To make that dream truly a reality, how do we encourage that? But again, instead of us as board members dictating, this is what we want you to do, we're hoping the community with the working group can come back to us with, this is what's happening, here are some real suggestions, and how do we go about it? Some recommendations. And I know Jeremy mentioned he was part of the Lake Working Group about for a year, and there was some discussions. This time around, it's a different board. We've got a new CEO. We're listening to our members. We're more member focused. We want to hear your response and truly make this, you know, our lakes are beautiful. We all are proud of it. We brag about it to everyone. How can we make sure all RA members get to enjoy it and experience it? Yes, Lori, go ahead.
I would just like to support your proposal and to say that, you know, it's great that there were past committees to discuss the lakes, but I don't want to be part of a resident association board that says, oh, we've talked about that before. Times change and Reston changes. And I think we need to talk about this again. And I strongly support this proposal.
Thank you, Lori. Go ahead, John.
I too strongly support this proposal. I have a question, ma'am. So there are 9,000 members who are in condos and apartments, and you have a voting member to represent them. Help me understand.
In each district.
Right, understood. Apartment and condominiums in each district, but we have 8,000 townhouse members, and they don't have a rep. And I don't want to make this committee 5 million people either, Madam President. And I, you know, that kind of a group, you never get anything done. You have 10 minutes, you have an hour just saying hello. So I'm trying to understand the thought process to include the condo and apartment people and not the largest number of unit types.
Are you okay if I change it to non-lake condo, apartment, or townhouse community?
God bless you.
Yes.
Okay. But you know, I'm talking about the Crescent Apartments, the Shadowwood, the
Absolutely.
Not Mac and his neighbors.
And you know, I agree with
Nothing against
that and support that. I just wanted it to be more inclusive.
Perfect. Got it. I will happy to make that addition. Not to say we shouldn't hear to Mac and his neighbors, but I just want to encourage more of those we don't hear from, like the Crescent Department we chatted with. Yes. Okay. Any other questions?
I just want to make one quick comment.
Go ahead, Mark.
As the PrAC board liaison, I want to make it very clear that I also support this initiative. This is not circumventing any of the great input that we received from PrAC. This is in addition to that great input that we received from PrAC, and we will continue to work with both groups, both parties, to make sure that all of our members' needs, wants, desires, and access is met.
Thank you, Margaret. Beautifully said. Yes, absolutely. We're not looking to precede any other groups, but absolutely have the conversation with PrAC as well, depending on what the equity group comes back with. This is not going to be just a few of us deciding for the rest of us. And if no other questions, I have a motion that I can make. Okay. Move to establish an equity working group with a focus on RA lakes comprised of 1 voting member representative from each lake community, 1 member representative from non-lake condo, apartment, townhouse community in each district, 1 voting staff representative selected by the CEO, and 2 non-voting staff liaisons, including the watershed manager and director of HR. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Erwin. All in favor?
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. John, 6. Bob?
Oh.
You're a no. You're a no. 7. Am I missing someone?
In concept, I agree with it. I don't know that this is the way to approach this particular issue. In concept, but
I have
no.
7.
We have many other things to do.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. I think we have 7 yeses and 1 no. Am I missing anyone? Okay.
President.
Yes, Margaret, go ahead.
I do apologize, but it is 2:30 in the morning and I do have to get up. So I appreciate everyone's time. I wish everyone a happy holidays, whatever you celebrate, and I will see you all in the new year.
Thank you, Margaret. Safe
night.
travel. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for staying up.
Yeah. I think it was you guilting her when that made her log in tonight.
I just mentioned it.
Okay, moving on. I think we're still doing pretty good on time. We're a little behind, but treasurer's report. I think everyone's seen Bob's fantastic video once again. Any questions for Bob on the treasurer's report? Bob, is there anything you want? Yes, Mike?
Got it. Bob, you mentioned that we're ahead of the game in terms of expenses, but it's primarily because we're saving money on staff. That strikes me as not necessarily a good thing. It means we have unfilled positions, right?
Exactly.
Okay, got it. So Mac, shifting over to you then, is there any, I know it's a tough hiring environment and this is not a new thing. But is there anything the board can do to help? Are we funding these positions adequately? Are we giving you enough money to incent people to come?
Yeah, it's a good question, Mike. So there's a couple things going on. A lot of the positions, most of the positions, I will say, have a normal lag. So the question is how to retain good employees. So someone leaves and then it takes a few months, somebody comes back on. We had a couple of positions, myself and the director of HR, that were very long this year being filled into the year. And then the director of environmental, which is still yet unfilled, but will be soon, hopefully. So those things make up the big fiscal number delta. Having said that, I am looking at and trying to benchmark a little bit to see where we're at, because there are a few positions, particularly down at CSF, that we've had significant trouble filling.
Okay, well, let us know how we can help. Thank you.
Mike, you can lifeguard next year.
We got one lifeguard in the family, yes.
Well, any other questions for treasurer? Bob, is there anything you want to share? It was fantastic as always. Thank you for the video. No questions. We will thank you and move on to our next agenda item. Thank you, Bob. Okay, do we have Chris with his year-end report? There he is. And I know, John, you had some questions for him. So we've again seen the video. Thank you so much, Chris, for doing the video. I know other directors might have questions too, but how about we start with John? You had a question for him?
Well, I had sent Mac and the staff some questions back in November, and I followed up with some questions earlier this week regarding our site plan processing, because I have a substantial concern about, to use a colloquialism, the county jerking us around and not abiding by state code. To explain, under state code, when we submit a site plan, the county gets one bite of the apple. They get to tell us what they don't like about the site plan, and then we respond, and then the county acts. And the county cannot, under the section of the code that I cited, 15.2, 2259, the county cannot raise new issues during second submission. And there should never be a situation where we have to make a third, fourth, and fifth submission. They're expensive, they're time consuming, and they delay our approvals and delay us moving forward with the work we've promised our members we're going to get done. Further, they only have 45 days to act on that second submission, not 4 months, not 5 months. It's 45 days. And at the end of that 45 days, we send in a 10-day letter. And if they don't act within the 10 days, a court will approve our site plan. And so I'm concerned with what I've been hearing, that we're going into a fourth, fifth, and sixth submission on some of our site plans, and we're being made to wait for county comments for more than 45 days. And I'd like to understand where, in particular, the Butterfly Garden, the Hunters Woods ball field stands. Do I understand it right that we're on fourth and fifth submission there?
I believe we're on our third submission at this point. I do have Jeffrey Holzer with Kimley Horn, who is, the direct contact that's working with the county through the submission process. But I believe we are on our third. However, there's been a lot of just, back and forth and, a lot of activity going on at the county right now, especially with the new Plus system they released, which is their new permit operating system, which has been a bit of a mess.
Don't I know it?
Yeah, so they're struggling over there for sure. They've also had a tremendous amount of staff turnover, from my understanding. I'm not trying to make excuses for their operations, but it's kind of what I think is led to a lot of our issues of late. I don't know if Jeff has anything else to add in his experience in this particular application.
No, I think everything Chris mentioned is pretty much the kind of the challenges we're dealing with. And I know in the past year, there's been promotions and movement of staff as well to compound some of the challenges. So yeah, I think that covers mainly all of it. It's been challenged, but we're working through it. We've made progress. And as of this week, we've been making significant progress with the county, who's been cooperating with updates and information they've been needing. So.
Can I follow up on that, Madam President?
Go ahead, John.
Did I understand it right that the request for the geotechnical review came up on after second submission?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so there's an example of what I'm talking about. That violates the rights of the association under 15.2, 2229. And if we don't push back on that, we're waiving it. And the net result is delay and expense on the part of the association to get these facilities built. And what I'm hoping we can communicate, and I have the support of the board to communicate, is we don't want to be waiving any rights under 2259. That if staff raises a new issue after the first submission, we are not obliged to respond. We're not obliged to spend the money. We're not obliged to, and I do this in my own practice, representing clients. I simply say, not raised on first submission, not required to respond under the state code. Please proceed to approve our plan. And please approve our plan within 45 days so that we're not dealing with 5 and 6 and 7 month delays in getting these projects started. And we've got a lot. You know, we've got Shadowwood, we've got, you know, where are we on the Hook Road site plan?
Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong. So from most recent conversations, we've gotten the first set of comments back from Fairfax County. The comments we're really trying to struggle with right now is actually with VDOT regarding some of the roadway enhancement elements. So at the moment, that's really what's kind of slowing us down a bit is with VDOT, not Fairfax County.
Yeah, that's correct. The Hook Road comments we received in the past month, and most of the comments that pertain to the county are, I would consider, relatively minor, but the VDOT are far significant and impact ultimately what's trying to be proposed as part of the plan, and that those comments would require review by VDOT, which can add substantial time frame to the approval process.
So if, begging your indulgence, ma'am, so is VDOT asking us to make improvements to an existing highway, existing public road?
No, the particular comments that are the challenge is that they're requesting additional study to warrant the proposed items that we are showing currently in the plans.
Okay.
They're not necessarily directing improvements. They're wanting to understand the warranted value of the elements we're considering.
These are elements we want to make, because again,
Yes.
Under the Hilton decision, the county cannot condition site plan approval on us making an improvement to an existing road right of way. And what I'm trying to get to is I'm hoping that we can take a posture vis-a-vis the county that is a little bit more assertive in protecting the rights of the association and the membership's interest in getting these things A, approved, and B, built. And I would hope that we could take an assertive position vis-a-vis the county staff in that direction so that we don't inadvertently waive our rights under 2259, which we may well have already.
I think Mac has his hand up. Go ahead, Mac.
Yeah, I think I just want to weigh in regardless of the legal issues, and I'm not obviously familiar yet with how the state contemplates second submittals, but what John's describing is a very typical process where on each submittal, the idea is to whittle down from the most amount of comments, then finally get an approval, and then ultimately reduce transactions costs by making less submittals. So if the concern is, can we be aggressive with the county staff and how can we work better together? We're committed to that. And I am just starting to make relationships with the senior executive staff over there. It has been my experience that there are times that it's good to come in with a stick. My advice is there are times to try to understand the business practices and get more with honey. And so I'm looking at the best way to get through those processes with the county, but we're going to be processing a lot of things with the county,
That's right.
over time. So appreciate the issue being raised. It does appear that there are a number of times we're being asked to talk about things or resubmit, which is causing us some transactions cost time. I think you've heard both our consultant from Kimberly Horn and Chris say there's also turnover, at the staff, and I have met with their executive team. They have had significant issues in this computer software that they've tried to implement, which is causing they're equally as frustrated. So I think what I might offer is let us keep working at it with them. If you would like a more regular report, be happy to do that, as well.
What I'd like, Madam President, with your permission, is I'd like to know when we get comments on second submission that are new issues. And I'd like to know when we have a submission that's more than 45 days old. I think that in acting on behalf of our membership who want these facilities built, that we need to be aware of them so that we can, as a board, be making a decision as to whether or not we want to send a 10-day letter. obviously would be looking for your recommendation on something like that. But I think that our experience with staff, the county staff, is they're not nearly as, and this is from my own practice experience, they're not nearly as collegial as one might have hoped.
How about Mac, when you come back to us? Chris, when do you come back to the board next?
Probably the first quarter update, which I think is most likely in March.
Could we
That's
get,
fine.
right,
Yeah, if I
Mac,
can
could
get
you
that
come back
done.
to us with a response of, how many of these projects are being held up and kind of what feedback you have? You would have had 3 months of interactions. We can bring it up at our Walter meetings as well. And how about we revisit this in March? Is that
Yep.
good?
Yeah, we'll report back on the status and which projects have been through multiple reviews and some of the reasons.
Correct. Perfect. Chris, any other questions for Chris from his report, his video? Directors? No? Well, thank you so much, Chris, for the hard work, and keep moving on.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, John. Okay, the next one that we have is land use update. Again, we've seen Larry's fantastic video and all the SSBA updates as well. Any questions for Larry on that piece? This time on the land use update, we have a few items. One is the Larry's update, and I think Bob has a piece to share as well. And then the last one, we want to talk about the Reston Town Center North strategy. But let's start with Larry first. Any questions for Larry on his video? Nope, hearing no. Thank you, Larry, again for doing the video and keeping us on track with the SSBA applications. Great news on the golf courses. So thank you. Okay, Bob, do you want to share a little bit on the comp plan updates? And the reason we're just hearing these today, we're not voting on it, not taking any action because we didn't have it in our board packet on Friday. But also I think if we wanted to give them any feedback, this will come back in our Jan regular board meeting. So this was the group that we had Bob, John, and Jennifer working on. And I think Bob has some updates to share. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, I'm going to share with you what amounts to a one-page slide deck. The John Farrell, myself, and Jennifer Juszczyk were asked to look at the excuse me, look at the draft of the Reston Comprehensive Plan, which was submitted to the county for their review back at the end of August. It was a consummation of about 2.5 years worth of work of a committee of almost 40 people, together with county staff. What we did was to look at the report and see and the plan and see if there were any areas where we might add some additional views or make recommendations that could be brought forward to the county. So first point is the review focused on the area that RA probably has the most influence, and that's in the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space chapter, which runs from page 115 to 124. There were a couple of clarifying changes, and I'll say that there were 2 subtle but important changes that John Farrell identified. And one was on page 120, that RA be included as a potential manager of the open space resources, including those in the TSA. And this is important because in the draft that went to the county, the only party that was mentioned was Fairfax County Park Authority. And this adds to our burden, but it also gives us what I believe is some control over how those spaces are designed and maintained. The second is on page 124, and that relates to Reston TSAs. And this is another subtle issue where the reference is made to public ownership of open spaces in the TSA, and John noted that it should be access. So what I believe he's referring to is making sure, again, that we have some control over that open space and have some say in how that space is designed and used. A couple of other points very quickly. Overall, the recommendations align with the planning principles and comments that we've already provided to the county. What's missing in the version from the task force, from the version that the task force approved back in August? One was the follow-on motions on affordable housing, which were taken out. And the second was this controversial chapter on earned density, which Supervisor Alcorn coined the phrase, and then no one could agree on what that really meant, so it was removed. Other changes from the version that the task force approved and forwarded to the county is the community health chapter on pages 147 to 152. The county, instead of leaving it solely in the Reston Comprehensive Plan, decided that it would be integrated into the county's comprehensive plan and would necessarily then be removed from the Reston plan, which is a subset of the overall comprehensive plan. So I guess that the next and last item is, what do we do with this information? Do the board members believe that these are of significant substance to send them forward to the county for their consideration? I think we should keep in mind that we're now in the middle of December. They've had the plan since the end of August. They will not complete their review and potential rewrite until sometime in January. I'm unsure as to whether we will get another bite at the apple to look at what they have besides public hearings on the plan. So I look forward to any comments or concerns or questions that any of the other directors have.
And what was your third slide, Bob?
It was just references to the plan, where they're located. Because both versions are at least 160 pages long, and the board package is long enough.
Thank you, Bob. Go ahead, John. You had a question.
Go ahead, Lori. I can defer to her, and I'll come back.
Well, it looks to me like the changes that were made were positive, and that the one thing that we wanted to change in that does not appear to be included is a section on affordable housing. And I guess I don't know that section well enough to understand whether there's anything more we can do in that area.
The affordable housing chapter is still there, but there were some very specific recommendations that the task force made for county consideration to really strengthen the affordable housing chapter, which are not in the version that the county now has out for comment.
John, go ahead.
So there also were changes, Bob. I'm sorry if this what I didn't point out that I did in an email. I did this work right after the task force adopted it and circulated it to my colleagues there back in October. There is also a change on page 66 and a change on page 75 which relates over to, because that's the land use section that relates over to Park and Rec. And we probably want to circulate effectively I did a red line but the red line wasn't extensive. It was basically what Bob showed you plus page 66 and page 75. And it probably makes sense for us to circulate it. I guess Larry had his hand up, but my impression is we're not going to see a staff recommendation until, boy, if it's February, we're lucky. So it may well be that adopting these changes and requesting these changes be made would be timely in January. And it would lay down a marker for public hearings that are probably not going to be held in front of the Planning Commission. I'm thinking, based on my conversations with various and sundry folks at the county, until like March. And, county approval would be after the budget session, which is April. So we're probably looking at May or even June before the full board acts on the Reston Comprehensive Plan. So my point is, we have time to get into literally redlining individual sections. And that's what Bob is referring to as a red line that I produced.
Okay. Any other direction? Yes, Erwin, go ahead.
It seems to me, particularly in view of the timeline that John has just drawn out, that it is unlikely, well, for me, it is unlikely that the staff recommendations, whatever they may be, would be changed by whatever we would submit, because the staff has already formulated, perhaps not completely, but has a fairly good idea of where it may want to go or not want to go with respect to what the task force submitted. And I think it would be wise for us to be able to be in a position to comment extensively on the draft that may be presented by the staff and to counteract what we may find objectionable or not in accord with where we think this ought to go. And you don't want to do double work. So you would be able to not only sort of take into account the comments that were made by the commission when it had an opportunity to make comments on the comprehensive plan draft, and also the staff's recommendations or changes, and present Reston's more fully developed position with regard to those presentations. We have already presented the general point of view through the recommendations that we made with regard to what were the more important points that we thought were needed to be emphasized.
Thank you, Erwin. Larry had his hand up, and then John, to you. Larry, did you have? Yeah.
Yeah, just real quick. No, I kind of echo what Erwin said from a timing standpoint. As I noted in one of my updates, the Planning Commission is going to have at least one, work session. John Carter believes it may require more than one, and the Board of Supervisors Land Use Committee will also meet again because, as you know, they had a number of concerns when it first met. So I think those are opportunities as well, and I think those will help inform us in the community about kind of where it's heading, after the staff report comes out, because presumably those committee meetings won't happen until they've got a staff report. They've got to have something concrete to react to. So I think that's when the rubber really meets the road, and kind of dovetailing what you said, Erwin, we don't want to, go through all these efforts twice. And I think really when the staff report, that's when the hard work, I think, really begins. Perhaps Tammy, who is on the task force, would agree with that.
Go ahead, John.
Let me disagree. Only because of the way this works. I think you're going to have a situation where there's going to be changes made between our meetings. And I can tell you that doing the work that I did, redlining, took several weeks. It wasn't something that I could just sit down and do overnight. it's important for the board to have an ability to respond quickly in the process, because you could have a situation where the staff report, the final staff report before the planning commission hearing is 2 weeks. I mean, that's typically a staff report. The staff report comes out 2 weeks before the planning commission hearing. And unless this board has said, those are the changes we'd like to see, I don't know who says what on behalf of the association, because right now we're in wordsmithing. That's where we are now. And if the board hasn't looked at the edits to the staff task force that have already been prepared on your behalf and have been pending since October, I don't know how you respond to a staff report. So
Okay,
I'd like to carry this over into January for people to look at the red line that's already been done and give us feedback on that to see if it works. I mean, and to see if people have real problems with it, so we can get a sense
Thank you,
of,
John.
are we headed in the right direction?
Okay, we're a little over, but I'm still going to, I don't know if it's okay, Tammy, can I put you on the spot and try to get your thoughts on this?
Wow.
Brittany, can we unmute Tammy? I am with you on the gen. I just wanted to hear just Tammy's input on this as well. Guys, can we unmute Tammy, please? Go ahead,
Thank you.
You have 1 minute.
Yeah, I have no information. We've been stonewalled. What I will tell you is John Carter is in charge of this being put before the planning commission. And he is totally pro Reston and on our side. So I think that I don't have a clue. I have no idea why there's this big long leg, except that the staff is overworked and you know, it's crazy.
Thank you, Tammy.
Sorry.
It's okay, thank you. Folks, are we okay with the red line edits coming to us? John, is there any way you can have it for the Jan BOC and then have it at the Jan board meeting? You're on mute.
Forgive me. So long as Jennifer and Bob are comfortable with it, I could have it to you tonight. I just need Bob and Jennifer to tell me they can live, they're happy with it, and they don't have any other changes they want to make to any other chapters.
Okay, how about we have this discussion at the Jan BOC meeting? So in the Jan BOC packet, Shalice and Brittany, can you help me by when you need it? If you could just send those dates to Bob, John, and Jennifer. So when the BOC packet goes out, all of us board members and including our RE members will be able to see the red line edits, and then we can have this conversation at that BOC meeting. Yes, Erwin?
Will there be red line edits for other than the Parks and Recreation section?
Bob, do you want to answer that?
You can go and get into those. I don't know, quite honestly, whether RA as individuals, sure, but do they represent positions that Reston Association would affect the operation of Reston Association? Possibly, but it's a product, again, of 2.5 years worth of work. It was done in coordination with the county, and the county has spent the last 4+ months, either sitting on it or rewriting. Let me be cynical.
We still have a big agenda item to talk about as part of land use. So I'm going to, if we're all okay with this coming to us at the Jan BOC. And Larry, maybe you and our representative on the RA task force can give us some input of if you can see any other edits in any other chapters. We have the advocacy points for all of the chapters. But the deadline or the cutoff for the entire group is for the Jan BOC. So it'll be the Friday before. And I'm sure Brittany and Shalice will get on you to get those materials to us by then. Are we good? You have the date, John? You look like you have the date.
No, I'm looking for somebody to tell me what the date is. I mean, I've done the work already. I'm waiting for my 2 colleagues to tell me that they're happy with the
Okay.
work. That's
We
all.
will-
I can't
get
speak
back
for
to you with
Jennifer,
the
but
date.
I'm happy with what you did, John.
Okay. So
We
so
will
I
get
just need
back
to hear
to
from
you with the
Jennifer.
date. Yeah, and
And
then
what's the-
Brittany will get back to you with the dates. Okay, the big one that we have is the Reston Town Center North Task Force. We said we'll discuss the strategy in open session as directed by our council. So directors, any thoughts on that? So to give everybody who's tuning in a little background information, RA had advocated with our supervisor to have a seat on the Reston Town Center North Task Force because it's RA covenanted land and hence at least a DRB representative to have a seat. But we've recently been told that it's only going to be residents of properties surrounding. So RA will not have a seat. And I know this was important to the board. So the question now to the board is, where do we go from there? Where do we go next?
Can I ask a question of Mac? If we were to say, Mac, that we want a member of staff, I know you're very jealous of opportunity costs. And so I want to be sensitive to those. But part of the background is there was a piece of land that RA was supposed to get in Reston Town Center North. And there was a negotiated resolution of that claim that was honchoed by Mr. McBride back when he was doing work for us. So it seems to me that RA has a dog in this fight, for lack of a better phrase. And if the board were to direct staff to have somebody attend all of the meetings, because they will be public meetings, this is a public body. Is that something that can be accommodated? And do you have a sense of who you might stick with that job?
I think well, I'll let Mac answer that question, but I kind of already asked him to have someone there. Right, go ahead, Mac.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, so the question of opportunity cost is always a question of prioritization, and I absolutely do think that there's an RA interest, as sort of suggested, is there a dog in the fight? Of course, yes, there is a dog in the fight. As you all just spent quite a bit of time talking about, there is the comp plan that's going to start moving into the hearing phase, and to be influential in that process will likely involve some pretty significant land use labor effort. I am growing a little concerned about how many total night meetings we're asking the same people to go to and still be effective, in presenting a lot of information. A lot of the staff work, say for a meeting like this, happens a couple weeks out. There's a lag time. So just with all these different things, the same people have their fingers down in a bunch of different pods. To answer your question more directly, John, I think there are some more pressing matters that are coming, but I'm not going to say this isn't really important. I think this is a split the baby scenario, and I'd probably look back to you all about where you want to put all of your resources. Well, the highest priority resources at this point.
Well, what I'm really asking, Madam President, is this something where we're going to need to ask a member of the board to, much like you did with John Mooney on the task force and Larry, is to say, okay, we don't have the staff bandwidth to keep an eye on this enterprise. We're going to have a member of the board fulfill that function.
I'm not comfortable asking a volunteer member to do more hours, but
But we did with the task force. We had a member of the board do it for the task force.
And staff. So Mike,
Yes,
I'll
one of
let
each.
you, I'll let you think about it. I know we talked about Megan at one point just because she's had an interest in land use. Again, we're just looking for someone here to listen and report back. Is that right, John? Just to clarify,
Exactly.
So
Okay.
what if we do this? How about I offer this as a suggestion? So there was going to be an orientation meeting where there's going to be a much more description about exactly what was going to happen at each of the meetings. We plan to send somebody to that so that we could report to you all. That meeting actually got canceled. So maybe I can send somebody to the first meeting and report back more articulately than, what we don't know right at the moment.
Yeah.
So, and that might give you more guidance, and me too, about what the resource allocation really is.
I think that's a fair enough. At least we'll know what their scope is, how many times they're planning on meeting, and then we can, if we're comfortable making the call then. Bob? Sorry.
I'm sorry.
John, Bob had his hand up, sir. Go ahead, Bob.
I was just going to ask, Has it been rescheduled? The
Yes.
meeting?
We don't have a date yet, right? It's just in Jan. That's it.
Right.
Okay.
And Mac, if you can share when you find out that date, it has to be an open meeting.
Yes.
So there'll have to be a Zoom. And, I think Tammy can correct me. I made about 2/3 of the task force meetings. Just out of curiosity, I'm probably going to monitor that. So I'm not, if you can share when that date is, there may be more than one member of the board who would be observing the meeting.
I have asked Shruti at Walter's office to let me know when it gets rescheduled.
Okay, now that's aside, attending the meeting aside, what is the strategy or the approach for RA to advocate long-term on this? Do we want to do something similar to what we did with the comp plan and look at the scope of what this group will be working on and then say, this is what's important to us as RA? And again, do we want to do that work as a board? Do we want to have a small group of the board go work on it? Again, we don't have to decide any of those today. These are just questions I want to put out for us to think about. And suggestions we can talk about. This is, I think, really important for us because of all of the civic uses that will be going in, which does not only impact the folks around, but impacts all of us in Reston, and especially a lot of our members. So it will be important to at least advocate for our members on what kind of civic uses, how does it play out?
So do you want to carry this over to the January meeting as a agenda item?
I think we will continue to have this as part of Larry's land use update, or just the land use update, not necessarily Larry's land use update, but just land use update. But this is just, you tasked us, Larry and I, with the specific ask with the supervisor, and we're reporting back saying we did not get what we wanted to. And so we're just re-strategizing and changing our approach. That's it. Any other thoughts, questions on this item? Nope. Okay, if we're all good, all matters covered, happy holidays, and we stand adjourned. If there's any new business, no new business. Okay. I'm looking at the clock and then going, oh my God, new business. No new business. Yes, Tony, correct me. What did I say?
I was just going to wish you all very happy holidays.
Okay. And Brittany, can we say you did a great job for your first meeting? It was fantastic.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yes. And
Thank
love
you.
seeing your smiling face the entire time, unlike somebody else who shall not be named. At least he turned on his camera today. So I'm very grateful for that. So well, thank you, folks. Happy holidays. And thanks, Mac and staff, for that.
Thank
little
you,
gift.
Lauren. Thank you, everyone.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Thanks.
folks.
Night, everybody.
Take
Happy
care.
holidays.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Right.
There
Bye.
was a motion to adjourn. No, but they usually say with all business